Hey, it's Mazzy and welcome back to the channel. I'm recording this on July 20th, 2025, the anniversary of the moon landing back in 1969 on this date. But I want to talk about an album that came out 53 years ago this week. This is the final Jefferson Airplane album. This is the worst Jefferson Airplane album. This record has very little redeeming value except for the fantastic packaging. Now, those of you who watch me on a regular basis know that of all the San Francisco 60s bands, the Bay Area, from Jefferson Airplane to the Grateful Dead, to Country Joe and the Fish on the East Bay, to Quicksilver Messenger Service, to It's a Beautiful Day, to Creedence Clearwater Revival, to all the bands. There's many more too. All the bands. My favorite band at that time was the Jefferson Airplane. Of course, Creedence was the one, kind of the standout that had the biggest visibility and hit-making stuff. Nationally. I mean, the world, CCR, you can't deny how great they were. So, but let's take that off the table for a second. This band was my favorite, but this is the biggest piece of shite. This album, this is their final official album as the Jefferson Airplane, except later in the 1980s, they did that reunion slick album out of LA on Columbia Records. That's a terrible too. But I don't want to count that. We can't count that. At least in my way of thinking, that is a separate entity. Although that actually has the official original band. This supposedly is the whole band, but it ain't. First of all, you have no Marty Ballin. You can't have the Jefferson Airplane, the proper Jefferson Airplane, with the man who really kind of started the band, Marty Ballin. And the vocals between Grace Slick and Marty Ballin were always just so wonderful. Then you got the Paul Kantner stuff, which was a different science fiction kind of oblique thing, which I love. And then, of course, you got the folky, rootsy, bluesy guitar playing of Jorma Kaukonen. So one of the great bands with multi-vocalists, but especially the combination of Marty and Grace. And no Marty here. And Joey Covington, who was on the album right before this. Now, just before this album didn't get a lot of love either, but this was Bark. Came in a brown bag and then had this kind of fish wrap. I'm not going to open it up now, but this is actually a really good album with good songs. And it's got a great vibe to it. Good album. But in 1972... they put out this, and what a piece of crap this record is. I even listened to it twice over the weekend just to make sure again. Like I was in a coma and I thought, oh my God, they couldn't have made an album so bad, but they did. This is the worst Jefferson Airplane album. Actually, this is the worst Jefferson Airplane album. It's literally called The Worst of Jefferson Airplane. This is the 1970 comp, the greatest hits record, which is wonderful. They would have in the CD era, and then later on CD vinyl era, 2400 Fulton Street, and various comps and expanded box sets, which are fabulous on their own. But in terms of a greatest hits record, this is great. I love that they called it the worst of the Jefferson Airplane, and you have Nipper here with the RCA dog. It's amazing that RCA stuck with this band and all their side projects with Grunt Records, their custom label, his master's voice. But Grunt, oh my God. I mean, yeah, you can't deny how great this is. And all their proper albums, from Takes Off to Volunteers, that stuff. Volunteers is a great album. Crown of Creation, of course, the psychedelic wildness of After Bathing at Baxter's. 1967, that and Surrealistic Pillow, like two sides of a coin of this band. One so, it became somewhat commercial, obviously, we know Surrealistic Pillow, and then later that year, something so wild, but that's kind of really held up. And then the great live album, Bless Its Point Little Head, that came out, one of the best live albums of the San Francisco scene. Probably that, along with Happy Trails by Quicksilver, which is mostly live, not all live. Putting the Grateful Dead aside, I know you can't deny Live Dead. We all know Live Dead and the various forever live shows of the Grateful Dead. But this is literally called the worst, but this is the worst. Now, they did make a few albums, projects, and Grunt Records via RCA. RCA seemed to give them carte blanche. And I tell you, in 1970, when that worst came out, they seemed to all want to do all their own projects. Of course, Yorma and Jack did Hot Tuna, great records, great bluesy folk records. This record is amongst my favorite. Now, this could have been a great Jefferson Airplane album, but it's a great album. This is Paul Kantner, Jefferson Starship, Blows Against the Empires. Now, this is not, quote, the group that became Jefferson Starship. Of course, there were members in Jefferson Starship. That's a whole other story. As much as I think they're great commercially in a certain way, but I am not a massive fan of Jefferson Starship. Maybe Dragonfly and Red Octopus, the first couple albums, I kind of like. After that, they got too sappy, middle of the road. Oh, they're the biggest hits ever. Remember that movie Mannequin? Whoa. But Grace is great anyway. And We Built This City, that's like an LA song. It's not even really about San Francisco, and it's not written by the band. And you got Mickey Thomas. That's not their Jefferson Airplane. And there's a generational divide, I think. People love the Starship more than the Airplane. I think they're wrong. I know it's subjective, and I sort of kid there, but this is the real deal. Now, what's great about this is the first time he used the name Jefferson Starship to kind of just show an offshoot. But you got members of the Airplane, of course, Grace Slick's all over this. But this is a wonderful record, and this is a science fiction record, a story. I think this was the first audio record that was nominated, I believe, for a Nebula Award, a science fiction award. And it's such a good record. This is my 1970-71. For some reason, I was bringing this to someone's house, and I would write my name on that. Like I think I have about 25 to 30 records that have the Maslov signature on the top left of the back. You did it in those days. You bring records over. I was very careful with my records, so I wouldn't loan them or leave them, but I would bring them occasionally. Anyway, this is a wonderful record, but I digress. But then, of course, Sunfighter, you have little China Kantner, their child, Paul Kantner and Grace Slick. This is actually a good record. So those records, and then, of course, after Quicksilver, you have Baron von Tolbu from the Chrome Nun. This is when David Freeberg from the Quicksilver kind of joined them, and he plays. Now, everyone left. Everyone's not here. So I don't know. This shouldn't be a Jefferson Airplane album. Those are more Jefferson Airplane than this. And the problem is you have Papa John Creech, that violin player who played with Hot Tuna, toured with them. This tour ended up having that live album, 50 Seconds Over Winterland, which is, I was at one of those shows. I believe they were in 73 at Winterland. So I did see them then. But, Papa John Creech's violin playing goes a long way, or is it a long way a little? And unfortunately he got a bad rap with certain people calling him Papa John Screech, because that screechy violin is on every fucking track on this record. Occasionally it's fine on Milk Train. That's got a great violin riff, a great fiddle riff of Papa John, but that's really great. Long John Silver is a Jack Cassidy song, which is okay. The problem with these songs, they're not great songs. They're not developed. And you got this wash of sound that's not really great. It's not very dynamic. I'm not talking about audiophile or that stuff, but dynamic in the songwriting, in the choruses and things like that. There's very little of that. Son of Jesus might be one of the best songs, and RCA made them take a line out that says something about the bastard son of Jesus. And then I think Alexander the Medium is one of my favorite, but it's one of those Paul Kantner anthems that would have been on Blows Against the Empire or Sunfighter, one of those. He was really into the storytelling and the futurism and leaving Earth and going into the cosmos, and that was great about Paul Kantner, and that's on here. The song titles are great. Eat Starch Mama, and this really features a lot of Grace Slick. But again, there's no dynamic in terms of the songs. There is one song, I think it's Trial by Fire, which is a Jorma Kakkonen song, which is your basic bluesy, folky thing that would be better suited for a hot tuna record. Um, yeah, it's they're not good songs. And this shouldn't have been a Jefferson Airplane album. Bark at least fits in it. And Joey Covington's song, like Pretty As You Feel and Funk, actually add to that. And there's that great One Night in Chelsea, I think it's called, the Yorma song, which is a wonderful, perfect folk song. And it fits on that album, on Bark. And that should have been the end. Or end it with Worst. And then we'll phone you, call it a day, do your solo projects. Now, before I part ways with you on celebrating the worst album, Jefferson Airplane did. This is my original copy, and look how beautiful it is. Now, of course, the packaging is amazing. That's the best part of this album, and you find these records intact and not put together. Now, there's a little diagram here. I tell you, they did better diagrams than IKEA does, putting their calyx shelves together. There's not a guy falling out of a ladder holding a screwdriver or something. It tells you how to make this perfect dream into your perfect stash box. It opens up, and you got this wonderful set of cigars with the lyrics. So again, the packaging's nice, but look, you got your stash. Before pot was legal, the whole counterculture, you got your own marijuana. And I know people that actually folded this up and used it as a stash box back in 1972. But you got their Jefferson Airplane banded cigars. You have, I mean, this is in beautiful shape for 53 years old. You got your custom grunt label, and you have your series of shitty songs making up the worst Jefferson Airplane album in their entire catalog. So, thank you for watching. I love the Jefferson Airplane. And those of you watched, search Jefferson Airplane and search San Francisco on my channel, and you'll get a whole, I think there's actually a San Francisco playlist, and you can, watch all these takes on me growing up in San Francisco and enjoying these bands. And it's easy to, criticize the ones you love. And I love the Jefferson Airplane. But when they make a crap album like this, and what a terrible way to leave. I mean, the Beatles, Abbey Road, goodbye, we're out of here. Now, of course, Let It Be came later. But, Abbey Road was really their swan song, their great finale. Isn't it great to leave the audience wanting more? And after this, you don't want any more, definitely. At least you don't want any more of this kind of crap. So Jefferson Airplane, Long John Silver, 9.5 blends of fragrant, that's one of those, you can't say that early in the morning here. Fragrant weed, humidor pack, Jefferson Airplane from San Francisco. Thanks for watching. Mazzy loves you.